So most of the frequent used kubectl commands we are going to discuss in the today session. So when we have the Kubernetes, we have two types of command line tools is there. One is kubectl and the second one is kubeadm. We have two types of command line tools. So kubeadm is used for the administration of the Kubernetes cluster, whereas kubectl we are using is to manage like a cluster resources daily for our daily activities also. Mostly we need to use the kubectl commands, we need to use for the daily usage also. Okay, so then here we need to discuss what are the frequent used commands we are going to use. From the kubectl we are going to use. Okay, so what is the version we have, that's we are going to get it from like kubectl version, mostly with the Kubernetes cluster version, and to which Kubernetes we have connected, that Kubernetes version also we are getting. Okay, then kubectl cluster-info. So cluster-info will show that what are the details we have regarding that API server, that API server endpoint URL, all these details it shows. Okay, cluster-info to which we cluster we have connected, those all we can get it. Okay, then like a config view shows like on the which current context like we have connected those namespaces, all those also details it shows. Okay, then like here kubectl component status, any of that API resources have been depreciated, all those metrics we can get it. Okay, so context is like to which cluster we have connected, and we can switch also between the multiple. Say suppose we have the multiple Kubernetes clusters, we can switch between those clusters also by switching those. So which context you want to use? So the current cluster, say suppose we have dev, QA, staging, or we have the multiple projects. Those we need to manage. So those we can manage from the get context we are going to use, and current context. Okay, and we can switch new context also. We have the multiple said from dev to production we want to move, that we can switch it. Okay, and we can set that this is also important command. Say by default is the namespace we are going to use. But say here you can set it namespace is my namespace we have given, or production namespace we have given. So that's by setting that namespace, what we are getting is like next time onwards, if you use kubectl get parts, it shows from the namespace my ns itself. We no need to describe again hyphen namespace. That namespace we no need to specify. Okay, so what is the kubectl config set context, my context, that namespace, by specifying this, what is the advantages? So what is the advantages?
No need to
Like we
specify
can
the name.
directly, yeah, so directly we can specify on which namespace we want to use. If we don't specify that, by default it's going to use the default
Default.
namespace. Okay, so here with this we can switch it. Then config view also mostly we use, and resource level, these all very important commands. Get nodes, okay, list all the nodes. Then get parts, by default it shows default namespace, but hyphen namespace or hyphen n, that namespace, and cube system internal Kubernetes related we are going to get it. So that's we are getting kubectl get parts hyphen n, that cube name system we can, cube hyphen system we can use. Okay, so otherwise we are going to use kubectl get service, then get all resources on the default namespace it shows. Otherwise you want to use for get all resources, it's going to display. Then describe is going to get detailed information regarding the pod. Okay, so normally we have inspect in the Docker, so it shows more details regarding the container, image level, network level. But here describe pod, so whenever we want to troubleshoot the pod level, first we need to get the kubectl get pods with that namespace, then describe pod, that pod name hyphen n, that namespace we need to specify. Okay, and I have a issue with the node, then like I need to describe that node and explain the pod also we can use. And mostly the resources we are creating using kubectl apply or create -f, that command itself we are going to use. But what we can use is, so what we
Create.
can use is create
Create.
deployment. Normally we'll manage through the YAML files, but in some interviews people are asking how we can create through the kubectl commands, deployments, all these also we can create, but mostly we are creating through modifying through the YAML itself. So for that we are using kubectl apply. But you want to create any deployments,
S- So sorry, Shrikant, can you come in?
yeah, say for the deployment mostly we'll use through the YAML file.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but here we are using
So
to
create command,
kubectl create
kubectl.
a deployment, that deployment name,
Name.
image, and even we can set that, and after creating the deployments, we need to expose it through service. We are creating a service also.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so that's we can expose. Normally we are creating in the real time, service YAML will have. From that we are going to create it. Okay. Then if you want to delete that pod, kubectl delete pod, my pod. Even when we want to restart the pod also, this is the only option we have. If you delete that pod, again a new pod with that is going to created based on the deployment file. Okay, so that's if you delete the deployment, the complete deployment is getting deleted. But mostly we'll do this also from kubectl deploy -f, that YAML file. If you give delete option, all the resources which are provisioned, all are getting deleted by default.
So there isn't, I mean, we can't restart the part here,
No,
only
we can't
deletion.
restart the pod. If you delete in the
Okay.
deployment, automatically from the pod template specifications, a new pod is getting created.
Okay. So you can't start or restart anything.
No, no, we can't restart the pod.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if you want to restart, that's again need to create it a new pod.
Mm.
Okay. So then here we need to pod management. We are going to use get pods run, but deployment itself will do. Okay. So then very important is kubectl logs are important. Okay, so logs normally even in Docker also we have the logs, but here inside technically if you create a pod backend we have a container itself. But one question what people will ask you is like if you have the multiple containers, then we have multiple containers in the single pod. Then we need to use additional to this kubectl logs my pod. Okay, so then -n that namespace, -c that container name we need to specify. Okay. So that means here kubectl logs my pod namespace -c, that container name we need to specify. That means if you have single container, we no need to specify in which use case you are using.
And we have multiple containers.
Okay, I hope you understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then even namespace also we need to use. And port forwarding mostly we'll do through service, but this is very important. So in Docker also we have similar, right? What is it's going to do? So what is that meaning of kubectl exec hyphen that pod?
It is going to interactive mode in a pod.
Yeah, say suppose if you want to enter inside the pod, Like even in the Docker also, we are doing the same thing. Okay, even in the Docker also, we are doing the same thing, right? Docker exec hyphen it. So that's you can enter into the bin bash or sh mode. So we can enter
particular pods.
inside the pod we can enter. Okay, so that's we can use say in the kubectl we can enter inside the pod using kubectl like exec hyphen it pod name hyphen in that namespace, then bin bash command we need to specify. That bin bash command, so we need to specify. And if you want to enter inside the pod, sorry, if you want to copy any files inside the pod, then kubectl cp we need to use. Okay, so kubectl cp we need to use. Okay, then delete pod, all pods are getting deleted. But instead of deleting the pod, if you delete the pod also, what is going to happen? If you create a deployment, how many number of replicas are there? Replica set will identify those, and that will create minimum those number of parts. It would be created automatically. Got it right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's is going to create automatically. Those parts are getting created. But mostly we are creating the deployments. But this deployment try to assume we created through the YAML file. Once we create the deployment, so then we are going to use like a kubectl get deployments hyphen n that namespace. Then we can use kubectl scale that deployment also to how many number of replicas we want to scale. That's we can scale up. Okay, so that means assume in a YAML file you have kept three, then you kept five. But one best method is in the YAML itself that replicas place three, you change to five, then kubectl apply hyphen f that YAML file. But people are, even if you tell that YAML method, they may ask the kubectl command. Then what is the command to increase more number of replicas?
Kubectl scale deployment.
kubectl scale deployment, that deployment name. Then even in all these, we need to specify one more thing. What is that?
We need to specify
You
replicas
give the
number.
namespace also. Okay, otherwise it tries in the default namespace itself. Okay, then what is this command is, assume previously we have 1.25 image, now we want to change into 1.26. Okay, but this also better to modify in the YAML file, then do kubectl apply hyphen f. But here in this what we are doing? So kubectl set image, that deployment like nginx hyphen deploy is the deployment name. In that image we are changing to like nginx 1.26 we are changing. So 1.26, what is the latest image or whatever the higher image we want to do, that's we can perform. Okay, then rollout, once we do the update, that status we can check it by using the rollout status. Okay, rollout history also we can check how many updates it happens, the deployment. Okay, then if you want to revert back to roll back to the previous version, rollout undo we can do. Okay, so these also when we want to the update of the deployment, we are changing the newer image, then we can check that from the history or status, and if we want to roll out, undo, we can perform. We can perform rollout, undo, we can perform to that. Mostly we'll expose the service also through the YAML, but we can expose the deployment using the which type of service those we can use to expose the service. Okay, then like get SVC will list all the services. So get SVC will list all the service, and that specific service you want to check it. Then we need to use describe service. Okay, so that describe service we need to use. Okay, so then port forward, not that much required to a specific port we want to use. And namespace related also, we already discussed kubectl get namespace, kubectl create namespace, dev or production, delete namespace, and that we want to set up as the default namespace. We are going to use kubectl config set context, that current namespace we are using dev itself. Okay, so that's important command. Then we can mostly config maps. All these also will create through YAML itself. Okay, secrets also through the YAML itself will create. Say, and persistent volumes, all those once we create, we can use get PVC, describe PVC, or delete the PVC also we can use. And what are the daemon sets we have? Stateful sets, replica sets, we can use kubectl, get rs, jobs, cron jobs, all those also we can see. And if you want to set the images, those kubectl set image like this or scale, we can do. But if you want to do any edits, we can choose the like the deployment resources. We can edit or patch also we can do. But mostly in the real time, it's recommended to do it through the YAML and keep that one in the source code. Okay, then from there itself we need to modify directly instead of doing like this. But we require the knowledge how to perform these operations also. Okay. So then, like mostly, what are the list of events? Even if you have any problem with the Kubernetes, we need to check those issues also. So, what are the recent issues happen? Or sorry, events? Like in the last 1 hour, lot of tickets are came. Like we need to check those events. Recent, what are the events happened? Or we can sort based on the timestamp. Okay, so those we need to use. Okay, so if you have any issues are coming frequently, then what are the recent events happened? Those all we need to check it. Okay, and mostly for the troubleshooting, we'll check the describe the pod will show more details, logs. Top will show the usage of that. Mostly in the production, we may have some hundreds or thousands of the pods. This monitoring information we will get it from. So we'll get that information from the Prometheus, Grafana, from those we are getting. Logs also will collect from the ELK kind of stack. Okay, so that's we need to check that. And node also we can troubleshoot using the debug node. But mostly we are using not direct commands. We are not using. We are using declarative way itself. We are deploying. Then maybe in the which output format you want to display, either in the YAML format, JSON. So those all we can display in the output formats. Okay. Then even we can say suppose when we want to do the node selectors or node affinity kind of rules. So those all we can manage through we need to assign the labels to those parts. So we need to assign labels to the parts. Based on that, by selecting to that which node we need to schedule the nodes, we can use node selector, node affinity rules like that we can display. Okay. Then opposite to that, we have the taint and tolerations. Again to the nodes itself, either we are attaching labels or like a taint. And if you taint that node, like it's not going to schedule that instances, but any of the pod comes with the toleration, that node is going to be tolerated for that. For others, is not going to accept it. Okay, so that's we need to use labels for the selector and node affinity rules we are using, and taint and tolerations. So labels or taints are assigned to the nodes, and node affinity rules, node selectors or tolerations are the pod specification files we have. Okay, so that's we need to manage them. Okay, and Cardon we are using whenever we want to schedule, like whenever a maintenance activity is going on, at that moment we are going to keep the Cardon. At that moment we are going to Cardon that, and even we need to use drain also. Okay, then all the parts in that are going to drain and will move to another node. Those will be moved to another node. Say first if you keep cordon, is going to be in the maintenance mode. The node is entering. Whenever we want to do any patching kind of activity, first we need to do the cordon, and if you do the drain, safely we'll evict those parts into another nodes. Okay, in this we are not moving daemon sets, those are running on that same node itself. Okay, so those are running on the same nodes itself, those are running. Okay, that's the reason we are ignoring daemon sets, remaining all the parts created through deployments and stateful sets will be moved to another node. Then normally scaling will use through the YAML file, and auto scale this instead of doing through the command, we'll do it through we'll do through the HPA resource. In the YAML, we'll create a horizontal pod autoscaler, and that's going to scale up that resource. Okay, that is going to create those resources are getting created with that like a HPA resource. But if you want to create through the manually, then the command is HPA is the command. Okay. Then for debugging, we are using kubectl exec-it. With that, we are entering logs also. We are checking. Okay. So then, debug also, maybe we can create a debug pod, and on that we can do, because production pods maybe we are not recommended to troubleshoot. Then a similar kind of pod I'm going to create. The on that I'll check the things and I can modify something, because on the production I can't perform like that. Okay, then I need to use debug pod, and that pod name I'm going to specify. Okay, so that is another method we are going to use. Okay, then events also important, top also is important. And quotas and limits we can attach to the pod level, we can attach, or even we can attach at the at the namespace level also we can attach it. At the namespace level also we are going to attach them. Okay. Then we can create the roles, or back roles also will create. And the service endpoints we can get it through describe the service we can get, or from the get endpoints also we are going to get those. Network policies also we can check. Then ingress resources, describe that ingress, even for troubleshooting the ingress also, that is important one. Okay. Should any doubts on this? And deleting also will perform all those. Okay, so for troubleshooting, we'll create a debug pod. And what are the API versions that the Kubernetes version supports? We can use from this kubectl API-resources and API versions. Based on the versioning of the Kubernetes cluster, those may be modified. According to that, we need to choose. Okay. So even for troubleshooting also, I'll share one more video. So that is also mandatory go through once. Okay. So try to finish this EKS one.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Srikanth.